Her pearl earrings caught the golden light as the bride's words cut through the wedding hall like a blade. "You're not welcome here. Go away." The laughter stopped. The music died. Every guest turned to watch the silver-haired woman standing alone at the front. No one spoke, not even her son. In less than an hour, the same woman who had paid for every flower, every plate, every note of music would quietly take it all away and leave. The bride, wishing she had never spoken those words. The wedding hall was a masterpiece. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, their light scattering across polished marble floors. Rows of white chairs curved toward the altar, each tied with satin ribbons that matched the bridesmaids' dresses. The scent of roses filled the air, mingling with the sweet aroma of pastries waiting to be served. Guests sipped champagne, their soft laughter floating between notes of string music. Margaret stood near the front, her posture elegant in a black dress that draped perfectly over her shoulders. Her silver hair was pinned neatly, the pearl earrings at her ears a gift from her late mother. She had been the silent architect of every detail in this room. She had chosen the flowers, arranged the menu, booked the musicians, and paid for it all without hesitation. Today was supposed to be the day her only son began a new chapter, and she wanted it to be flawless. The bride approached. The smile on her lips didn't touch her eyes. She stopped in front of Margaret, her chin lifting slightly. "You're not welcome here. Go away." The words weren't shouted, but they didn't need to be. They rang sharp enough to still the air. Glasses were lowered mid-toast. Conversations broke off. Some guests stared openly, others dropped their eyes. Margaret looked to her son, searching for any sign of defense. He stood stiff at the altar, but his gaze stayed fixed on the floor. She had endured hardship before. Nights alone while her husband served overseas. Endless shifts at the hospital. Sacrifices that no one had seen. She had never broken then. She would not break now. But something inside her shifted. Margaret turned without a word. Her heels struck the marble in soft, measured beats, the sound filling the hush she left behind. As she stepped into the hallway, the air felt cooler, cleaner, a place free from the tension pressing inside. She reached into her handbag and found her phone. Her voice was steady. "Cancel everything," she told the event coordinator. "The catering, the flowers, the music, all of it." She didn't explain, and the silence on the other end told her she didn't need to. The change began like a quiet wind. A waiter lifted a pair of untouched champagne flutes and walked away. A florist carried out an armful of roses, petals brushing against her sleeve. In the kitchen, chefs began sliding untouched plates into boxes, their movements brisk and silent. Inside the hall, the shift was subtle at first, then it grew. The desert table was stripped bare. The musicians zipped their instruments into black cases. The air grew thinner without the scent of roses and the warmth of music. Guests started noticing. They whispered in low voices, heads turning toward the empty spaces where beauty had been minutes before. The bride's smile flickered, confusion edging into her eyes. She leaned toward the groom, her words tight, but he gave no answer. From the doorway, Margaret watched without a trace of gloating. This wasn't vengeance. This was simply the removal of a gift once it was no longer valued. Her face remained calm, but there was strength in her stillness, the kind that makes others realize they've underestimated you. And in the dimming glow of the hall, her control was already reshaping the day. When Margaret stepped back into the hall, the transformation was undeniable. The chandelier still glowed, but the room felt emptier, colder. Tables that had once overflowed with flowers now sat bare. The faint sweetness of roses was gone, replaced by the flat scent of linen and polished wood. She walked to the center of the room. The murmur of guests fell into silence. The bride straightened in her seat, trying to hold her composure, but her eyes betrayed the unease creeping in. Margaret's voice was quiet, but every word was clear. "I built this day with love," she said, "and love should never be met with cruelty." The sentence hung in the air. The bride's lips parted, but nothing came. All around, guests exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of discomfort and respect. Margaret turned toward the doorway, her heels clicking against the marble in a steady rhythm. Just before crossing the threshold, she stopped. Her gaze swept over the room, meeting the eyes of the bride, the groom, and anyone else who dared to look. "Respect is a gift," she said, "and once you throw it away, you cannot buy it back." There was no anger in her voice, only truth, and that truth cut sharper than any raised voice could. She stepped out, leaving behind a hall thick with silence. The bride sat frozen, her hands gripping the edge of her chair. The groom stared after his mother, but the distance between them felt wider than ever. In that silence, the balance of power had shifted completely. The afternoon sunlight touched Margaret's face as she walked toward the waiting car. She didn't rush. Each step was deliberate, the sound of her heels fading into the open air. Inside, the music never returned. The tables stood half empty. Guests began slipping away, their whispers trailing behind them like shadows. The bride tried to keep her smile, but the gaps in the decorations were glaring. Every missing flower, every cliff plate was a reminder of the moment she had tried to erase and failed. The groom spoke little. He moved through the room like a man carrying a weight too heavy for words. Some guests avoided his eyes, others offered polite nods before leaving early. The energy that had once filled the hall was gone. Margaret settled into the back seat of her car. She didn't feel triumph. What she felt was clarity, the kind that comes when you know you have protected your dignity without wounding yourself. In the process, she had given everything to this day, and when she was told she did not belong, she had taken back what was hers, with the same grace she had given it. By nightfall, the wedding was over in all but name, and in the years to come, guests would remember it, not for the dress or the music, but for the moment a quiet woman, armed only with her dignity, had changed the course of the day. Sometimes, silence is not the absence of words, it is the presence of power.